kuziwe abangani bamanga.
Welcome, welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, wow. I'm looking at the chat right now, and it's amazing. People from Nepal, Georgia, Brazil, from the Netherlands, Vietnam, Nepal again, Argentina. So many countries are coming up together today, which is great. We have already 68 participants, which is great. We have disabled the waiting area, so everyone who signed up and registered can come in, of course. Hopefully everyone is okay with this, but we are also live streaming on Facebook at the moment. So yeah, we will be looking at the chat a lot, and hopefully everyone will enjoy this webinar. So happy to see so many faces. This is great. Well, welcome to this first series, this first webinar, CLP webinar series that is taking place in June 2021. We did previous ones, and this is the first one for June, and we will have another one in October as well. Today, we will have a webinar presented by Mike Menton and the 10 top tips on good project design. And I'm hoping everyone is excited because I am as well, very excited. I can see we have the CLP team with us as well, minus one person, Henry Rees, who is our colleague, program officer at FFI, is on leave today, but I'm sure he will be watching this again, hopefully. So hi, Henry. And we have also Kate, who is our communication executive and who is, thank you so much, Kate, pulling up the live Facebook. Yay! We have Leela as well from WCS, who is with Christina organizing all these brilliant webinars. So this is just amazing. And we have, of course, Stuart, our executive manager of CLP. Hi, Stu. Um, yeah, I think it's time to dive in. But before we dive into the webinar, we would like to give you a little overview of CLP for those who don't know us. So a quick introduction to the Conservation Leadership Program, aka CLP. So CLP was initiated in 1985 and is a partnership of 3 of the world's leading biodiversity conservation organizations: BirdLife International, Fauna and Flora International, and Wildlife Conservation Society. Currently, our work is being enabled by our donors, Arcadia, a charitable fund of Lisbeth Rose and Peter Baldwin, Foundation Segre, and the Beers Group. So what is our mission at CLP? So our mission is to support the next generation, so early career conservationists, in conserving the natural world. And then we would like to build their professional skills and foster their connection with peers, and also provide them with opportunities to help advance their careers. And how do we do that? This is the best one as well, is that over the years, over the 35 years, we've been supporting 800 team-based projects and internships comprising of 3,000 individuals in 100 countries worldwide. And that was through team awards. So we have 3 team awards. You start with a Future Conservationist Awards, then you go for a follow-up award and then a leadership award. You can also, and then you will be able, to go into trainings, international trainings and regional trainings. And we support as well by having internships and mentoring. Our impact so far over the 35 years is quite impressive. And I'm going to do a little bit of self-promoting, but Kate did a magnificent video that you need to see on our website, on the landmark, and yeah, of our 35 years in conservation of the program. So basically, $10 million, over $10 million was awarded to projects. 140 new species discovered and rediscovered, 80 protected areas were established, and 60 new NGOs were formed, which is very impressive. We want, of course, to continue. Before we dive into this today's webinar, we want to let you know as well that we have 2 other upcoming webinars. One is going to be on the 22nd of June, presented by Lorna Salmon on social media and conservation. I will share these registration links in the chat right after. And then on the 24th of June, we have another webinar on a new paradigm for conservation in a changing climate, presented by Lauren Oakes. So be posted in the chat. Hopefully I will pop these registration links in there and you will be able to register to that. And if you have problems to find the registration link, I'm sure you can always find it on our social media as well, or on our website. So keep in touch with us, obviously. You can visit our website. We have a lot of information there. You can also contact us if you have any questions about CLP. You can sign up to our quarterly newsletter to know what we're up to. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at CLP Awards, where we have always brilliant videos coming up and information, thanks to Kate. So yeah, and now the moment you've been waiting for, Maike Menton is going to do her beautiful, yes, webinar on 10 top tips on writing a good, on a good project design, sorry. Let me stop sharing my screen as well. There we go. Maike, are you ready?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. Can you see it?
Yes, definitely. Great.
Excellent. All right. So thank you, everybody, for being here with me today. Thank you, Sherilyn, for the introductions and everything, and for the whole CLP team to set this whole thing up. I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit for those who don't know me, so you know who you'll be listening to for the next hour. So my name is Maike. I am based in Rwanda, in Kigali, and I work for BirdLife International. I've been the fundraiser for BirdLife for about 15 years. And as a fundraiser, I've written about 500 proposals, not all of them successful, but nevertheless, I got a lot of experience in writing proposals. I have also been running what is called the Regional Implementation Team for the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund. And this team is like an intermediate team between a donor and grantees in biodiversity hotspots. So I've worked in the Eastern Afro-Montane hotspot and currently working in the Mediterranean hotspot. In that capacity, I have actually reviewed and assessed about 1,500 applications. And about 200 of those I have helped to actually design into fundable projects. I'm also a trainer for the Conservation Leadership Program, and I've done about 7 trainings on project design, proposal writing, and fundraising with Conservation Leadership Program in various countries all over the world. I'm a co-author on the fundraising manual, which I was already showing around. It is available on the CLP website in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. It's for free. So absolutely no reason not to go there after this webinar. Download this book in your language of choice and use it, because it has a lot of very helpful tools. And to put all my cards on the table, I'm also a Chelsea supporter. So I'm very happy to celebrate with you that we won the Champions League this year. So now you know everything that you need to know about me. Want to talk a little bit about you. You are my audience today. When I was asked to give this webinar, I said, how many people do you expect will attend this event? And they said maybe about 20. I said, all right, that's manageable. In the end, I find out that about over 350 people have signed up And I think we have 99 people on the webinar as we speak. So I was wondering, like, why so many? So I'm thinking a lot of you maybe are waiting for silver bullets. You know, those top tips that make your projects look really, really good and your project design be very, very well. Maybe you want a magic wand that turns these project designs into bankable and fundable proposals. Or maybe you're just looking for a goose that will lay your golden eggs. The good news is you're going to get all of that. Well, that's the good news. You'll get these 10 top tips and hopefully they will help you do whatever you want to do. But you are going to be the goose to lay the golden eggs, because all the 10 top tips that I'm going to give to you, you will have to apply them. If you don't apply them, they'll be useless. So you will need to pick these tips and apply them in your project design. So that is your job. Of course, it's not just about getting good projects done, getting them sold to your donors. It's really about being more effective in what we're doing, achieving more impacts with the projects that we're implementing. And in this case, because we are talking here about biodiversity, about critical ecosystems, about birds and key biodiversity areas and all those sorts of things, it's really about achieving conservation impacts. So these top tips are, yes, they are project design. Yes, they will help you with your fundraising. Yes, I'll talk a lot about donors, but really it is about getting better at what we are doing in terms of conservation. It's going to be really fast, of course, because we want to give you also time to ask questions and to discuss. So how do you summarize all of this in 10 top tips? I have 3 minutes per tip, so I'm going to be very fast and furious. However, we're going to have breaks for questions and answers, which Sherilyn will kindly facilitate for us. And at the end, we'll also have a time for question and answers, even if that takes us beyond the hour, because we'll make some extra time available after the webinar for your questions. One further a warning so that you are prepared. A lot of what I'm going to say, you'll think, oh, well, that's obvious. Oh, that's straightforward. Yes, they are obvious. Yes, they are straightforward. Nevertheless, they're very, very real, because in these 1,500 applications that I have reviewed, and even in some of the 500 proposals that I wrote, these things happen. And I'm going to let you know that please be aware of these things. These are traps and you're not supposed to fall into these traps. So after this webinar, hopefully you will have all these things in your head and you'll never do any of these things again. Great. You ready? Take a deep breath. The first 4 tips I'm going to give you are about logic and about time. So here goes. Number 1. Be ready. So people do not read instructions. It's a common fact. Why do they not read the instructions? Because they think they're too busy, because they're lazy, because who reads anyway? Reading is for old people. You know, nobody reads anymore. Anything over 280 characters is way too much for me to comprehend. I've done all this before. I don't need to read it all over again. How hard can it really be? You know, it's all the same anyway. Right. Wrong, of course, is very, very, very wrong. You have to read the guidelines. In the Eastern Afro-Montane hotspot, we received about 1,100 applications, and about 60%, so that is 2 out of 3, did not pass the eligibility cut, which meant that they were doing maybe the right thing, but in the wrong place, or they were doing the wrong thing in the right place, or maybe they were doing the wrong thing in the wrong place. Maybe they didn't think their design through well enough and they put in things in wrong places. They didn't keep to the word counts that were in these application forms. Maybe the form was incomplete. They didn't answer all the questions. And you have to realize an application form by a donor, you might curse them because they're awful, but they are how a donor wants to see your project design. It's the way they have represented the project design for your project. So if they want to see it like this, you give it to them like this. If they want to see it like that, you give it to them like that, because you want their money. 2 out of 3 in the Eastern Afro-Montane hotspot. When I checked this with Sherilyn, she said even in the conservation leadership program, 1 out of 3 doesn't pass this initial eligibility cut. So you can imagine, if you stick to the guidelines, if you read them and you stick to them, your chances of success are immediately multiplied. Tip number 1, read the guidelines and fill them, stick to them. What you want to avoid is give the donor a reason to reject you. And they have designed this form the way they think it's best, the way they think it represents best your project design. They want to see certain things in a certain format, you give it to them like that. No question. So this tip number 1, read the guidelines. Obvious, right? Nobody does it. Okay, tip number 2. Many people design the project based on what they want to do. They say, I want to do a species survey. I want to make a management plan. I want to raise the awareness of these communities. Is that right? No, that is wrong. You do not start with what you want to do. You need to start, why do you need to do anything in the first place? Is there a problem? Because if there's no problem, there is no need for a project. If there's nothing to fix, why do you go there? Still, you can still do your survey, you can still do your management plan, you can still do your awareness raising, but people will say, fine, go ahead, do it in your free time. Why would I pay for that? Why do you need to do that? You need to have a problem. And not just have a problem, you really need to have the right problem. There are lots of problems out there, so you need to find the right problem. To do that, you do a problem analysis. And one of the tricks in this book is a problem tree. And it's a very, very good tool to find the real problems. You go deep, you find the root causes, you really figure out, you together with your stakeholders and everybody who has an interest or a stake in this, you will define the problem. And maybe there are many, 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 many problems. In that case, you'll have to then define the exact problem that you will address in your project. Have to be specific. Because everything, and I mean everything, in your project design starts from the problem. So if you get your problem wrong, you can imagine everything else that you're going to do, your solutions, your interventions, your stakeholders, they will all be wrong because they will not actually fix the problem. So you have to have your problem right. So this is my tip number 2. If you don't have a problem, you don't need a project. Get yourself a good problem. Start with why do I need to work here? Not with what am I going to do? All right. Tip number 3. Now that you have this problem, many people forget then this problem when they start designing their project. So yeah, okay, there is a problem there, but they still want back and like, but I want to do my survey, or I want to do my management plan, or I want to do my awareness raising. So that is also wrong. Once you have a problem, everything flows from there. Your solutions, your activities, your results, your impacts, also the people you need to put on this project, the budget that you need, the stakeholders you need to work with. Everything follows from identifying the right problem. So you need to keep the link between the problem and your solution. Many applications that we see, we cannot clearly see the link between the problem that people have identified. We may be very, very, very general, and the project that they're going to design. So you have to make that straightforward. And the best way of doing that is, again, following the tools in this book. And you start with a problem analysis, in this case, a problem tree. And from the problem tree, you build an objective tree, which basically says, this was how it was when it was bad. This is how I want it to be when it's good, when all the problems are solved. And based on that objective tree, you build your intervention strategy, which could be a logical framework or a theory of change, whatever way you want to present this. But if you do it that way, then there is a direct line between your problem and your interventions, and that is your project design. So make sure that that links remains in place. Because again, if your project, so your solutions are maybe really, really nice, but if they're not actually going to fix the problem, then your whole project design is faulty. We also want that to be specific. So you have to explain exactly how you're going to fix it. Don't say, I'm going to work with stakeholders and I'm going to engage the government and I'm going to raise awareness, which lots of people always say. We want to know specifically what you're going to do. So in your design, and of course, things happen and things might change in the implementation. But when you design your project, think it through step by step. Who is going to do what, by when, how, why? So that it's very clear how this project is going to fix the problem. This is my tip number 3 on project design, is that if you have this problem, you have to well defined, then make sure in your project design that you fix that particular project. And the best way of doing that is that if you have your problem identified here, the short-term impact or the end line of your project is actually the solution to this problem. And they have to match one-on-one. All right, tip number 4. I'm telling you, I'm going fast, but you can read it all back in the book and other ways. My 4th tip is about sustainability. There's a belief by indigenous people of North America, which is called 7-generation stewardship. And it basically says, whatever we do now, we need to think 7 generations ahead, which is about 140 years, and see that whatever we do now is actually benefiting the people 7 generations down the line. This is really thinking about sustainability. And this is what you also need to do in your project. Sustainability has to be part of the design. And a lot of time, sustainability is like an afterthought. You design your project, you say, this is what I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do. And even in a lot of application forms, the last question on the application form is like, and how is your project going to be sustainable? Wrong. Sustainability has to be built in from the beginning. It has to be part of your project design. Because if everything ends when the funding ends, basically your project has failed. So you need to think of all the things you have to do while you're implementing your project to make sure your project is sustainable. And this is not just about money. This is about institutional sustainability. It's about ecological sustainability. It's about communities. It's about political sustainability. There are lots of ways and means you need to think about sustainability. And you have to have things built in your design that will ensure your project results and impacts will sustain after project end. And it can be relationship building, it can be mainstreaming, it can developing income streams, it can developing no money activities, because not everything has to cost money. You can build in ways and means that things can sustain without actually costing money. You want to think ahead, like, are there any risks that this could at some point harm biodiversity, and therefore you have to build in environmental safeguards. All these things have to be part of your design to make your project properly sustainable. So this is my tip number 4. You have to start with sustainability in mind. It's not an afterthought. It is a very key component of your project design. So I'm going to give you a bit of breathing space. So the first 4 tips that I gave you were about guidelines, about problems, about solutions, and about sustainability. So I'm just asking Sherilyn or you, are there any questions or comments or anything people would like to talk about right now? We'll give you about 5 minutes.
So the first question, is it possible to have this presentation? Which is good. Maike designed a handout, and we will give you everything in the end of the webinar. It might take a bit of time actually, because we're writing a blog first. Kate will be writing a blog about the webinar, and we will be sharing information and also the handout as a PDF on the top tips. Anything else? If you want to raise your hand as well, you are more than welcome to do that if you are comfortable speaking in front of everyone. Jennifer is saying, any tips on making financial income sustainable in context of providing economic stipends to communities for community monitoring data on endangered species? Would you like me to repeat that?
Well, I can already give you the answer. Like, well, yeah.
Good.
Financial sustainability is of course on top of everybody's mind. It's not the only one, though. I think, you know, we really need to think beyond only financial sustainability. There are lots of other ways and means of making projects sustainable. Anybody can come here and say, well, how do I make this sustainable? How do I make that sustainable? I won't be able to give you an answer. I mean, that's a type of silver bullets. I mean, I can't do. What I can do is, if you want to talk about this, maybe at the end after the webinar, we can have a little discussion. You can tell me a little bit more about your context, because it's very difficult when you say, I'm doing this and how can I make that sustainable? I need a lot more information for that. So I'm happy to talk about that later. Yeah, I mean, think about financial sustainability. There are two things I always say. One is, does it really need to cost money? Because we always think that, you know, because original project costs money, therefore to sustain things will cost money. Not always the case. The second thing is, if it does cost money, who's going to pay for it? Will that be from a donor or from somebody else? And that is then really where your search starts. Is there anybody who has an interest in keeping this going? So it's definitely, there are no silver bullets. If that would be the case, then I think you know, that would be my one slide. This is how you do it. But yeah, it's not easy.
Someone is asking if you could summarize again the 4 first tips. I guess they will be in the handout as well.
They will be in the handout, but okay. I can summarize them for you. One is, read the guidelines. Actually, 2 is read the guidelines, and 3 is also read the guidelines, because you really need to read the guidelines. The second one is, do a proper problem analysis. Find the right problem that you're going to address in your project, and if the problems are too big, then define the bit that you can fix in a very realistic way. Don't promise that you're going to fix everything. You can't fix climate change, but you may be able to fix the impact of climate change on one specific piece of biodiversity. So make sure that the scale of your problem is in line with what you can deliver. My third was, once you have identified the right problem, then make sure that your project design is actually going to fix that problem. So there has to be a very direct link between the problem you have identified and your project intervention strategy that will fix that problem. And number 4 was about sustainability. You have to build in sustainability right from the start. Don't wait until the end. Don't say, I'm going to do my sustainability plan 6 months before my project ends, or 1 month before my project ends. That is too late. You start with it on day 1.
There are actually a lot of questions about sustainability. At least I can see 2 coming up. From Timur, how come it is relevant, to consider political community sustainability in developing countries under a 1-year project, since the country itself needs sustainability plans?
Right. Again, this is a very general question, but I can give you a specific answer. So one thing, for instance, that happens a lot is that people go out and do a species survey somewhere, and then they take their information and they store it somewhere in their university, and they publish a paper, and it goes out on some website or in some sort of scientific publishing site. The people in the community don't see that. They don't have those data locally. So the next time somebody comes and says, I want to do research about this species, they can say, well, yeah, somebody else came a few years ago, but we don't actually have that information here. You have to go somewhere else. And, you know, it remains to be seen whether these people still know who these people are, be able to point them in the right direction. So one type of community sustainability you can think of if you talk about research is have to have a local repository of that information. Who came here, what did they do, what were the results, etc., so that when the next group comes, they will find that information there, and they don't have to reinvent the same wheel. Or they can use previous data as a baseline and add their new data as a monitoring. This is not financial sustainability, but this is institutional community-based sustainability, and it is very, very important. I think the question was more about if a whole country has financial problems, how can we then in a one-year project fix financial sustainability of a community? Again, it really depends on what you're doing, how you're doing it, what levels of sustainability are you talking about. So again, you know, you can think about something like tax rebates, right? Small things like if people work on something in a sustainable manner and they produce eco-labeled products, you know, maybe there is a tax deduction, they pay less VAT. This can be a way of making that type of work more sustainable. And there are multiple ways and means of doing this. So can't go through all of them, but.
Of course. But this goes back to another question that is actually asking, how do you think it through at the beginning? And I think you answered that quite a bit, but here this person is asking, for example, if there is a real problem and I want to fix it, and I have a specific plan for fixing it, but all the relating parties are unsustainable. How do you think of sustainability? It goes a bit with the country as well, kind of question.
Right. Again, you know, it's very hard on the basis of very minimal information to give any meaningful response. But I can imagine when you say, look, I have to work with the government for institutional sustainability about this particular project that I'm doing. Maybe it's with park management on a national park or whatever. And the government is notoriously unreliable. So how do I make this project sustainable if these people keep going away, or they get fired, or there's another election, or they don't really care? Of course, those are difficult decisions and difficult things to do, but you have to think about it, because what's the point on trying to do something if you know that after 1 year, everything will collapse? There is very little point, and we have very little money. We have very little time. The problems are massive. So then you might actually think, okay, I know what I need to do. I know who I need to do it with. The people I want to do it with or need to do it with are actually not sustainable or reliable or anything. Maybe I should do something else. Because you want to make the best use of the money. We have no time to waste. We have to do the best thing possible with the little money and time that we have. So they are tough discussions and tough decisions to make in the end. I can only do our best. Yeah.
I'm conscious about time, sorry. I know that there is a lot of questions. Don't worry, I am copy and pasting them into a Word document so we can all come back to them at the end. But I think for the time management, we need to continue. Thank you everyone for your questions as well.
Yes, thank you indeed.
They're not forgotten.
If I can't. I'm sorry if I can't do the exact right solution that you may be looking for, but
oh yeah.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about the next 4 tips, and these are about approaches and context. So bear with me. Tip number 5. We all know, I think we all know about our comfort zones. Comfort zones are the states in which we feel comfortable, we feel safe, we feel we are in control, we know what we're talking about. So it's a very nice thing to do. But again, it can be a trap. In project design, a comfort zone can be a serious trap because you think we've always done it this way, this is how I learned it, this is how I do it, this has always done it, and this is how I will do it forever and ever until the rest of my life. But is that right? Is what you have been doing all this time the best thing you can do? Do you have evidence that this is really the only way to do it, the best way to do it? Or have there been other science and surveys and research done that says there are other ways of doing it and they're better? Are there best practices that you weren't aware of before that have come up in the course of your lifetime? You have to stay alert and learn about science and evidence. If this science and evidence is there, then we have to be brave enough to apply them. You have to be willing to change your approach and say, okay, I used to do it like this. It worked at the time. This was the best we could do. Now I know there are other ways of doing it. There's science, there's evidence that this one works better. I am actually going to change my ways and do things this way. This is brave, but again, we have to do the best thing possible in our project design. And therefore, we need to use evidence and science. So here you go, my tip number 5. Use evidence and build on science. We cannot waste time with, you know, happy stuff that we used to do and doesn't work anymore. Have to be targeted and doing things the best way possible. And of course, everybody knows about Conservation Evidence, the website. I provide the link in the handout that will come your way at some point. Use Conservation Evidence website because it has a lot of really, really good information that will help you do the best thing in your project design. Tip number 6, measuring. So in management, everybody always says what gets measured gets done. People get really hung up about numbers of this, numbers of that. I think it started all with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and they started thinking about performance indicators and things like that. Yes, even in project design, there is a mantra, and it's called SMART. I think everybody knows what it stands for. Can hear you all saying specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Exactly. And in project design, you can be smart at the level of your project impact. You can be smart in the level of your objectives, your results, your indicators, anything. But the key word is measurable. And measurable is good, but it's only good if you do it right. You know, it's a bit like what we used to say about databases, garbage in, garbage out. It's the same with measuring stuff and monitoring. If you do it the wrong way, it all becomes meaningless. So here's one of my favorite examples. And again, you'll laugh, I hope you'll laugh, but I get a lot of proposals that work this way. And they say, my problem is there's a lack of awareness. Now, everybody who has listened to my tip number 2 says, is that really the problem? Because, you know, I'm not aware about a lot of things, but it's not really a problem. At least I think it's not a problem. The lack of awareness is not the problem. The problem is people are either doing the wrong thing because they don't know better, or they are the victim of wrong things because they don't know better. That is the problem. And so bad things are happening. That is the problem. Lack of awareness, not the problem. However, lots of people put this in their project design. They say, my problem is lack of awareness. So the solution is what? Raise awareness. I'm still none the wiser. Still don't know what the real problem is. I'm still not sure what these people are going to do and what will happen as a result of it. Still, okay, let's move on. At the end of the project, they then say, awareness will be raised. So hooray, hooray. And I think, how are they going to measure that? And then they have an indicator and they say awareness will be raised with 40%. Does any of you know what that means? People throw in a number and then they think because I put in a number, it becomes measurable. No, this is not measurable. What does that mean? Are 40% of the people suddenly aware about something? Or have the level of awareness of these people gone from 0 to 40%? I mean, what does it mean even? I mean, what is 40% awareness? So my point is, you really need, in your project design, set very good indicators. And this is not because of the donor. It's not because the donor says you have to do a logical framework and plonk in all these indicators. This is for you, because you want to make sure that this project is doing what it is supposed to do. And if you have good indicators, you can monitor your project and collect all the data that you need to be able to see where you're going. Then you can use those data to evaluate. You can think about what does it mean, and do I need to adjust anything? And if you have all of that together, you can use that information to learn and actually design things, as we say in Africa, even more better. Because we have to get better at what we're doing. So really, please don't give any useless indicators that don't measure anything. You have to have in your project design proper indicators that really give an indication of where you are and what you're doing. So again, in the book, there's all sorts of stuff about indicators, that they have to be objectively verifiable and that they have to have means of verification so you can actually prove that they're there. Have to include monitoring, evaluation, and learning in your design. Tip number 6. All right. Tip number 7. Are you still with me? All right. This is about approach. This is about your organization. A project is only as good as the organization that will implement it. I can write a proposal for you. I can sell it for you. I hear actually there's quite a business in writing proposals for other people. But that's not right. You know, it is you who need to do it, because your project design has to be in line with your organization. It has to be in line with your organization's strategy. It has to be in line with your vision and mission and objectives, because otherwise, why would you even bother? Why do you do this? You're not doing this just to run after the money. You're doing this because you want to protect biodiversity, save species, protect ecosystems and habitats. So it has to fit with your vision and mission. It also has to fit with your ability to actually implement this project. Your staff, your experience, your skills, the tools that you have. If it's in a faraway place, do you have people there? Do you speak the language? All these sort of things. And a really good tool to help you think this through is a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, I think most of you will also know. Again, I keep waving this book around, but it's all in there. It's about internal strengths and weaknesses of your organization vis-a-vis the project that you want to implement, and external opportunities and threats. And if you do a SWOT analysis as part of your project design, it will help you, for one, think through, why am I the best place organization to do this? This is your internal strengths. What are the things that I'm missing to be able to make this project a success? So then you can build that into your design and actually get those missing bits in your project as part of your project. What are the external opportunities I can use and benefit from in this project? And what are the external threats that I need to deal with? So that are the threats that I need to be aware of. I need to mitigate them, which will also show your realistic context, like what exactly will I be able to achieve within this external context. So do a SWOT analysis as part of your project design. It is extremely helpful. Also, in your organization, don't design these projects alone. It's not something you do on the back of your laptop on a Sunday evening. You have to do this together, because everybody will have inputs that are critical for the success within your institutional context. You have technical skills that need to be involved, but also management. You may not like your boss, but he may have ideas about how your project fits within the wider program of the organization. You need to talk to your financial people. Can I actually do this for this amount of money that we have? How much does this all cost? You may want to talk to your gender expert and have them look at it and make sure that whatever you have in your project design is gender sensitive. You may want to talk to your board members because they may have networks and people that may be relevant for the success of your project. So don't do this alone, is my question. Build on what you've got in your organization and do a SWOT. And in my country where I come from, I'm from the Netherlands, we say if it rhymes, it is true. So this rhymes, build on what you've got, do a SWOT. It's rhymes, so therefore must be true. Tip number 8. After this, I'll give you another breather, and myself for that matter. Many people think they are the only ones that can solve this problem. And they say, if you don't give this money to us, then everything will be lost. Species will die, sites will disappear, people will run away, it will be a big fat disaster. Yeah, probably not. You may be the best one, you may have done your SWOT analysis, you may be the best one to do it, but you're never alone. There are always others who will be working on the same topic or in the same area on the same thing. There's not, I think, a single space on this earth, unfortunately, unless maybe deep inside the jungles of the Congo. But there's always somebody who owns the land, whether it's the government or the communities or a private landowner or the national parks. So there's always somebody you need to deal with. And of course, if you've done your SWOT analysis and you found that you have some missing skills in your organization, you will need to buy in those skills, either through consultancies or through partnerships. So don't do it alone. Don't compete, but collaborate, cooperate. And I know there's a lot of perverse incentives to compete because there is little money and then you don't maybe want to share it with somebody else. You need it for your organization, you need it to pay your salaries, etc. But, you know, a problem is complex. And we've done this problem analysis, you'll find there are lots of different things that are impacting on that problem. Therefore, a project is also complex. There's nothing like a simple project. Even if something that we would call a simple project, like we want to save this species, or we want to do some work on this site, it will have a lot of different things involved. You need to know about species, you need to have survey skills, you need to talk to communities, you need to maybe raise their awareness, but you also maybe then have to provide them with alternatives, income generating activities, livelihood activities. You may have to deal with governments, you may have to deal with private enterprises. You may want to set up sustainable financing mechanisms. They're all different skills, but they're all part of that same project. So it is much better to collaborate. And I personally think this is, again, another silver bullet. We don't do it often enough, but it is very, very important. We are the good people and we have to stick together. We should not compete with each other. We should work together. So there are two things to think about. One is design your project together with these stakeholders. Don't design it on your own. Don't exclude them. They have to be part because they will know things that you don't know. But also design truly collaborative projects. Because even if people say, oh yeah, I'm working together with these people, basically that means I'm going to their meetings and they're going to my meetings. That is not truly collaborating. That's maybe keeping each other involved. If you really want to collaborate, you have to have joint objectives and joint activities and do things together and add value from your different perspectives. So this is my tip number 8. Don't go it alone. Working together is cool. It's nice. You get new friends, but it's also better. You get better results if you do it in the right way. Oh, going to give another breather for a few more questions, and then I have 2 more tips for you, which are specifically about writing.
We will give it 3 minutes answering questions. Is that okay, Micah?
Very okay.
Cool. Any questions?
If there are any.
I can always go back to the other ones.
Yeah, no, and then I can also continue, and then we go to the end.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Yeah.
Frederick is saying, even in the depths of Congo, there are still people owning the forest. Cheers from DRC.
That's absolutely
There you
right.
go.
Of course. Yes, there are people everywhere. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions related to these tips? Yes. So there is one from Ernest. What about the sites where no study have been done previously on the species?
Okay, I will then ask, what's the problem?
Yeah. Oh wait,
Is
there
that
are other questions coming in, so I might be lost.
no, I
in
mean, but to go back to that one, if you say yes, okay, there's a site and nobody's ever been there, or at least they've never looked at the plants or the fungi or the birds
Mhm.
or whatever, is that a problem? Maybe if you think that this site is particularly important, maybe there's a species who is on the critically endangered list, and you might think that this site might be a critical site in the life cycle of this bird. Sure,
Mm.
but then you have a problem, right? You have a problem when it's like these birds are disappearing and we don't know where they're staying, and we need to find a place where they're staying so we can protect it. That's fine, then you go for it. But if you just think, well, nobody's ever done, I mean, like most of the earth, nobody has done a survey on snails or on worms or on whatever. And is that a problem? Maybe that's not a problem. Or maybe that's not the most urgent thing that we need to spend our money on at this particular point in time. So you have to have a real problem.
Mhm. Great, thanks. Someone is Amali saying, great tip about working together. I imagine though that there has to be always a leader that coordinates all the parties involved.
Follow the leader. Um, yeah, well, not necessarily. I think what you need to do really, if you really want to work together, you have to start early. You have to start designing this project together. You have to make sure that it is a fair partnership where you really appreciate people for the contributions they're making. And yeah, maybe somebody will do more and others will do less. Doesn't mean that one is the boss and the other is a subordinate. Maybe one person or one organization is the counterpart for the donor organization because they probably want to deal with one. But if you have your internal communication system set up where this information is shared, etc., other people will play other roles. So I think if you design a partnership based on respect, based on added values, based on clear agreements on who's going to do what are our roles, how do we communicate, how do we report to the donor, who reports to the donor, what do we do in case of conflicts. If you have a proper set of rules of engagement or a memorandum of understanding or anything that you like, there doesn't have to be one the leader and the other not. But then maybe I'm just an old socialist who believes
okay,
in
though.
equality and fraternité and all that
Yes.
sort of stuff.
Yeah. There are other questions coming up, but we have 5 minutes before the end of the webinar, so I will let you
Let's
go
take these
on.
other questions then
Yeah,
afterwards.
I will
All
pop
right.
them onto a Word document.
Indeed. All right, so here goes. My last two questions, they're not necessarily about, not question, my last two tips, they're not necessarily about project design, but they are very relevant for formulating your project vis-a-vis your donor. So they're about writing, really. So here you go. Number 9. I hope you all know George Orwell. George Orwell is a very famous author who wrote 1984. I'm not sure, I mean, I may be very old, but that was really a book from my youth. But also Animal Farm, which is also a movie, which you can probably find on YouTube. Animal Farm, if you have not read it and you want to understand what's going on in the world right now, you read that book, you'll understand everything. It is the book to understand politics and the state of the world. So here's a hot tip that is not part of my 10 tips. Read Animal Farm by George Orwell. George Orwell said, good prose is like a window pane. It should be so clear what you're saying that I can basically see through it exactly into your brain what it is you mean. So this is how we want to write our projects. This is how we want to even design our projects. We want it to be easy. We don't want to have a lot of confusion about what is what and what is where, etc. You have to make your design easy and you represent it in your proposal, whatever, easily. So you use numbering. You say, my problems are 1, 2, 3. My solutions are 1, 2, 3. So my project is going to do 1, 2, 3. And it will be very clear for me then to see, all right, this makes sense. There's a logical connection between the problems and solutions and the interventions. So use that. Don't make things unnecessarily complicated. I'm not sure about if you know about KISS, but KISS means keep it simple. Stupid. So everybody needs to keep it simple. Complicated text make people stop reading. They get annoyed, they don't understand, they don't want to spend a lot of time on this. They say, I don't get it. So keep it simple. Seriously simple, I would say. Use bullet points, short sentences, short paragraphs, sort of map it out really logically what it is you're going to do. There's no more excuse about bad language. And not mean bad language as in cursing, but in bad language as in, you know, sort of auto-translated. There are very good translation tools these days. There are even online grammar tools. There is always somebody who can proofread. Make sure your text is easy to process by anybody who's reading it. Your grandmother should be able to understand what it is you want to do. Don't use unnecessarily difficult words and acronyms and stuff like that. Really keep it simple. And if you find yourself at any point in time repeating yourself, then immediately stop what you're doing. For one, it's boring to read the same thing again and again and again. Two, it obviously means you haven't understood the questions, because no application form will ask the same question twice, because there is no point. Every application form is designed to get as much information from you in as little as possible space. So if you find yourself repeating yourself, you're doing it wrong. So stop doing it and read the guidelines again, read the questions. Also, it can be a sign of bad design. If your project is designed badly, like for instance, the one about awareness, and you say, my problem is lack of awareness, my solution is I'm going to raise awareness, my activity is I'm going to raise awareness, my result is awareness will be raised, my indicator is awareness will be raised by 40%. You have repeated yourself 5 times and I still know nothing. So it is bad design. So always make sure that when you write your application forms, you never repeat yourself, because it's either you haven't understood the questions or your design is bad. Okay, that is my tip 9. Write as clear as a window pane and keep it seriously simple. My last tip is about neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if any of you heard of it. It's not science, it's pseudoscience, but it's a very good trick. It's a trick, it's a psychological trick to make people think that you're talking the same language as they, that you create trust and confidence by using the same words that they are using. So for instance, if I said, you know, you're all waiting for me to give you silver bullets, and I keep repeating, here's a silver bullet, and here's another silver bullet, and here's another one, you think, okay, I'm getting what I wanted. I'm feeling now confident that I'm in the right place, listening to the right person. So you have to do the same when you write your applications to the donor. And I'm going to give you a seriously exaggerated example, but just because it, I think, clarifies the point. If you write to a UK donor, an English person, you are polite, right? Everybody, this is generalizing, but people say English people are polite. So you say, thank you so much for the opportunity to submit this application to protect the globally threatened species. Perfectly fine, polite way of saying things. If you would say this to an American, they'll probably fall over snoring. They think that's boring. You know, they want to hear something like, I'm excited to be able to reach out to you and pitch to you my incredible idea about animal welfare. This is something maybe an American say, oh, well, that's cool. That's interesting. If we would say that to an Englishman, they say, oh, that's a bit over the top. So, you know, you have to play with your words. You have to say, give them a sense that they know that you know what you're talking about and that you're actually talking about the same things. So use their buzzwords, use their the words they have, they use themselves, and repeat them back to them. that will create confidence. And of course, you know what these words are because you have read the guidelines, which takes me all the way back to tip number 1, which is read the guidelines. It will help you all the way through. Try to find those buzzwords and feed them back to your donors, and write your project design and write your application in those words. So that are my 10 tips. I was going to ask you to repeat them for me, but I see my time is up, 1 minute. So I will quickly run through for your benefit. If we would have been in an actual meeting hall, I would have said shout at me. Tip number 1, read the guidelines. Tip number 2, if you don't have a problem, you don't have a project. So make sure you got a real good problem. If you have a problem, then make sure your project will actually fix it. Your design has to be to fix the problem. You have to start with sustainability, core component of your project design. Use evidence and build on science. Don't mess around. Do the right thing in the right place. Monitor, evaluate, and learn. Build that into your design so that you can make sure that you keep the process going of tracking that you're on the right side, and you learn about how to get things better. Build on what you've got in your organization. Build on what you've got and do a SWOT. Make sure your organization is in the best possible position to do this project. Don't go it alone. Work together and make sure that your projects are designed together with stakeholders, but they're also actually designed on the basis of collaboration. Write as clear as a window pane and use the right words. These are my 10 top tips. I can talk to you for a week about how to do a logical framework. I'm not going to do that, of course. Read the book. I gave my email address at the top of the presentation. I'm always happy to hear from you and help you if I can. We'll now go into a last sort of 15 minutes of question and answers, and go Chelsea.
Thank you so much, Maaike. Thank you so much. This is really good. This is brilliant. There is a lot going on in the chat as well. I am aware of the time, so I would like to share with all of you some of the links, so you can actually leave if you want to, so you already have all the information. And if you want to stay on, we will take the questions that are on the chat and we will talk about them, and also the questions that came earlier, and we will come back to them as well. Just for your reminder, so let me put down all the links. So the most important one is the book. Read the book. You can find it here. So you have it in the chat. Put it there as well. A lot of people are saying great tips, Maaike. Thank you so much. All the questions will be answered after, no worries. And then, oh, someone was asking if you could go back to the to sharing your screen. What's happening there? Oh, I think someone is sharing their screen. And
yeah, it looks like somebody else is sharing the screen. So
okay, do you mind taking over? I'm going to continue. Like, I feel like, yeah, it's the links are going to get a bit lost. So the manual is in the chat, and then just as a reminder, the 2 webinars that are coming up as well on the 22nd and on the 24th are right here as well, sharing that with you right now. And now I'm going to go back to the questions that we had in the beginning. How do you want to do it? We go back from the beginning, because there is one comment as well about use the right words, what you finished on.
Oh, we can go back to, we can go bottom to top. Or top to
Bottom to
bottom,
top?
whatever works best for you.
Sure. I think I'm going to tackle the ones that are in the chat first as well. Might be easier. For those who need to leave, thank you so much for joining. It was amazing. We will have a recording that we will share with you if you registered. Of course, you registered to come here. So you will have these links, and we will share with you also a hand note. And there will be a blog written about this webinar onto our CLP website. Thank you so much. Going back to the questions, Mauro is saying this is regarding the donors. Right words, use the right words, and speak your donor's language. And he's saying this essentially means that non-native English speakers are at a disadvantage with foundation for the US or the UK.
Not necessarily. I mean, if I assume there are certain languages in which you can, I mean, generally a donor will provide guidelines in the languages that they receive applications. So if a donor accepts applications in English, they will have the guidelines in English. If they're in French, then in French. If they're in Spanish, then they're in Spanish. So if your guidelines are in English, but you're not an English speaker, and you'll have to submit your application in English, then you can use the same words as mentioned in the guidelines. You can take the guidelines through your auto translator. You can take your text to the auto translator. You just need to then check with somebody who speaks English or whatever, what does the guidelines say, and make sure that you use the same words. Always, of course, non-native speaker. I'm not a native speaker. My native language is Dutch. It took me years before I felt confident enough to make my first joke in English. So I know it's not easy if this is not your mother tongue, to feel confident in another language. But practice makes perfect. Try to keep doing it. Use these tools. There's so many excellent tools available on the internet these days. And of course, these are also things you do together. Again, don't struggle alone. Work with other people who do have maybe the skills that you're missing in terms of proposal writing or English language or French language or Spanish or whatever language it is. Really try to find people to work with.
Yeah, I agree. Great. Thank you so much. Lots of people saying thank you. Last, it blew my mind. The manual is amazing. Thank you. Thanks for amazing presentation, Maaike. I think we can thank you so much. Go back to the last slide. It is still up, so hopefully everyone can still see it. Okay, there is a question. How to get buzzwords of donors from the guidelines, especially from this perspective, yes, again, of non-native English people. So you did tackle that a little, but yeah. I think.
Yeah, I really think so. And I mean, even by looking at the donor websites, the homepage of a donor website will give you those words, because that is where they are presenting their own sort of mission and vision and whatever. And the keywords are 9 out of 10. They are right there. Yeah, that's what they want to do. That's what they want to achieve. That's where their heart lies. So
we do too, as well. Well, look it up. Yeah.
Look it up. CLP.
There are later. Thank you. Thanks, Maaike. That was awesome. Great tips. Thank you so much. Oh, I think this one is related. Well, yes. Do we have a chance to win the grant if we apply individually? I'm not sure what grant. Like any grant, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, read the guidelines. I mean, eligibility is always described in the guidelines. One of the key things that guidelines will say, you can only apply if you are a government, or you cannot apply when you are a government. You can apply as an individual, or you cannot apply as an individual. So these things are generally very clearly described in the eligibility criteria and in the guidelines of a donor. If you can't find it in the guidelines, then it's always good to actually check with the donor whether you are eligible as an individual. So you send them an email, or you try to call them, or get in touch with them in one way or the other. Sometimes they have question and answer sessions. Because it's a waste of time if you write a whole proposal and then turns out that it's not eligible. So
Yes, yeah, and I can also vouch for that. Is that we do it too? Well, since last year, we have done last year a Facebook Live as well, answering Q&A questions about our application process, and I hope to do it again this summer, or this summer, end of summer, with Kate, and hopefully you will be able to talk with us, and if you want to apply, obviously, to CLP.
yes.
That's another one. Really
but
amazing.
I think the tip is, if a donor makes information available on how to get in touch. For instance, for CPF, you can always get in touch with the regional implementation team or with a CPF grant director. For CLP, they say we have these Facebook sessions, and you can use those opportunities. Really use those opportunities. For one, it will, save you a lot of time. But also, if you've done that, people will already know you. They have already seen your name somewhere. And the recognition factor, again, starts already ticking in, even if it's on a subliminal psychological level. But it is helpful. It is helpful if they have talked to you, they've seen that you've made the effort to learn about the donor, to see what they want, to see what they need. You can then build a relationship already with the donor about sort of presenting your project, give them an idea about what you want to do. And again, it will make it just that much more difficult for a donor to reject you if they know you. So, and this was my tip number one. You want to make it as difficult as possible for a donor to reject you. You want to make it as easy as possible to accept your proposal. So anything you can do in that respect is fair game.
Going back to some of the questions about innovation as well, science grants often ask you to be innovative, doing things that have not been done before. How important is innovation in conservation?
Yeah, good question. I actually had I had a comment on that in my notes. There is, of course, that thing about, you have tried and tested things, and then you have to be innovative. Now, research grants, of course, are a separate type of grants. So if you want to do research, you have to do something new. There are very few research donors that will actually allow you to repeat what somebody else has already done to see, whatever, because that is not the type of thing they want to see. So for research grants, yes, you'll have to probably come up with something new. However, it's not just research grants where you need to use research and evidence and science. It's actually also, especially with conservation grants and with people development grants, etc. That's also where you need to actually apply evidence and science. So don't just say, oh, evidence and science is only for research grants. No, it applies everywhere, because you have to make sure that you're using, there's so much research going on, right? If you just subscribe to a few of these mailing lists, you get them all the time. Lots of research going on about dealing with communities, about dealing with people in protected areas, about species conservation, about methodologies that work and don't work. So you have to sort of stay up to date with that sort of stuff within your area of work, and then apply what is best and what is relevant to you. So the science is not just for research projects, it's really also for conservation projects. And CLP, of course, specifically asks for this. CLP is a section in the application form that says, what is the science? Based on what evidence are you going to, are you proposing this? Has this happened before? Do you know if this has happened before? Do you have any references for this? Because people can come up with all sorts of things, but you want to be sure that you're doing the right thing with the right people in the right place.
True, that's true. Yeah, we added that last year, actually. And it will still be in the application. A lot of people saying, thank you for the wonderful webinar, Maaike. Thank you for this wonderful webinar again. And we will share Micah's email address as well. Obviously, everything will be done to send you an email when you registered. We got your email address, so hopefully we will be able to send you an email with all the information and the recording of this webinar with the handout, etc., etc. So your email address will be in there. Hopefully you're ready.
I'm ready, yes. And
Yes.
I just wanted to add something about sustainability, because I know I probably didn't answer those questions to the satisfaction of the people who asked the question.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
this
We
is
have some
because
other
it is.
questions from it.
Yeah, but I just
Mhm.
want to go back to that for 1 second, because we are going to do a session
Okay.
at the International Conference on Conservation Biology in later this year. I think it's in December. Here in Kigali, if it's live, otherwise online. And it is going to be a session specifically thinking about sustainability. And we're going to actually try to map out some sort of like a taxonomy of the types of sustainability you need to think about, and what are the opportunities and options that you have to build this sustainability into your project design. So again, watch this space. This is a work in progress. But by the end of the year, hopefully we'll have something that we can share with CLP, because this is a CLP webinar that we're going to do, a CLP seminar that we're going to do at the ICCB. So more to come on that.
Thank you so much. Yes, watch the space.
Watch this space.
Yes, and talking about that, Christina shared as well that the 2022 Team Awards call for application is going to be in July. And she does mention as well, sign up to our newsletter and follow us on social media. Yes, do it. Go ahead and do it. You will know everything about us. And then Kate, thank you so much for sharing as well. Again, the website. So it is in the chat if you want to see it. And also our Facebook page and our Twitter account. Great tips. Cool. I think we can go back. Maybe we are running over time by 18 minutes. We do have some questions. I don't know how to do this. I don't know if everyone has time to stay on, but I
can stay on for a few more minutes, until maybe 12 minutes. Yeah.
It's just that we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions.
Oh.
Well, we could try.
Okay,
and
hit me.
I will hit you. Okay.
Yeah.
This one was for the 4 first tips. When we design a project of 12 months, for example, how about the time frame this project, particularly about each objective or of a project? So basically, I think it's asking what is the time frame for each of the objectives in the projects, in a 12-month project? But that's
it's impossible. I cannot say that. And again, the terminology differs per donor. So what some people call objectives, some don't are actually high level sort of impacts. Well, for others, it's like project specific results. So very difficult to say. In a 12-month project is extremely limited. That is, I think everybody can agree on. You have to have a lead-in time. You then start sort of working on your activities, achieving some results, making sure these results are being used and applied, and therefore now reaching your impacts. You will need all the time you can get, really. It's I know lots of donors give 6, 12 months projects, but really, it's that will be hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is
to make significant change.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to pick up one other question, and then the other ones, Micah, if you don't mind, I might email them to you. And if you have time, we can then compact them at the end of an email when I'm going to send it all to the registration participants.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. And then there was one from the 5 to 8 tips. Would you suggest to focus on a single specific species, or might it also be logical to go for a key species as approach covering a broader diversity?
Again, this is a very specific question. I need a lot more context to be able to answer that.
Yeah.
Define your problem. Is the problem about one particular species? Then obviously that's what you focus on. Is the problem about a site where multiple, it's an ecosystem? Then you might consider, okay, do I use one species as a flagship species so that it's clear that this is, as an example, or do I look at the whole thing and showcase all the interrelations between these different species and types and levels of the ecosystem? Really define again what is the problem that you're going to address, and then come up with what you think together with your stakeholders, your partners and everything is the best approach to do it. And this is again not something that you can decide on your own or that I can decide here on my own. This is something that you'll have to come up, with your partners and your stakeholders.
Of course. Thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you very much for this webinar. I hope it was insightful for all the participants. The recording is going to be available. We will have a handout. We are going to be able to email you all the information we talked about today. And there is going to be a blog that Kate will write as well. So you can go back to that. If you have any questions in the meantime and you want to ask them to CLP for it to be transferred to Micah or directly to Micah, we will share also the email addresses. So it's all good. And we hope that you have a wonderful day wherever you are, that you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and a wonderful weekend as well. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wonderful life, everybody.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, there is a hand up. Would we want to? Yeah, sure, go for it. Or maybe that was a mistake.
No hands.
No, it doesn't do. Okay. Well, thank you, and
everybody.
have a wonderful life. Definitely.
Have a wonderful life. And thank you everybody for listening. And I really hope it was useful. But yeah, as I said, read the book. Reach out to me if you would like to, and and stay involved with the Conservation Leadership Program for any future information about any of these things we're going to do. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, CLP team, as well, Christina Leland too, for being there as well and responding in the chat. It was great team effort. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.